Supply chains are complicated, and even more so when you go globally. I'm Curt Trnka.
I'm Jozef Gallot.
And we're going to be talking about the things you want to be looking for in 2026 and beyond. So, you're the right guy to be talking with. You oversee how many continents?
I've never heard it framed that way. Technically 2 continents,
Okay.
19 countries,
Okay.
15 in Europe, 4 in Asia. So you're right, it can be complex, but our challenge is to make it simple for the customer.
Okay. I think that for me, the very first thing that I want to ask is that you're talking about where you're actually working. You're in Europe and Asia specifically. So if people hear supply chains in Europe, supply chains in Asia, and they want to tune out, why shouldn't they?
You know, each geography presents its own challenges.
Yeah.
The Europeans love laws. So a lot of compliance specifically is driven by legislation and reactions to what the governments want us to do. Obviously, we're a big company, we have a lot of exposure, and we need to do right by our customers. When we look at Asia, it's much more fragmented. There's a big difference between China and Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. Mm-hmm. The flavor is the same,
yeah,
but the final ingredients, let's say, might be a little bit different.
Okay. I feel like, so this is asking about what's different about running a supply chain outside of North America, and it feels like you have to break it down again. Is it that Europe is very different from North America and Asia is very different than North America? And is that just an oversimplification when you stop and think about it's different everywhere you go?
I'd say it's fair that it's different everywhere you go,
okay,
but you have to realize we're all trying to accomplish the same things. There's just a slightly different method by which we do it. If I look at the landmass of Europe, it's largely harmonized. The European Union, there's laws that affect most of our countries, but after Brexit, the UK's changed some things a little bit. I look at the CBAM compliance regulation. It's going to affect both territories, but the UK is a year behind. When I look at some of our Asian challenges, there's different standards. For example, in PPE in America, it'd be ANSI, CSA. Yep. Mexico will do a little bit of both. When we look at China, it's GB. When we look at Southeast Asia, it's 3 different standards for 3 different countries, but they'll also accept the European EN and ISO norms. So it is quite complex, but again, our challenge and our mission is to make it really simple for the customer. Let us worry about all the difficult stuff.
Okay, and that's exactly what I kind of expected you to say, but I want to already leave the script and say, I feel like this is a great time to bring up the fact that you mentioned the different standards. You also have the same product that has to be different when it is entering these other places. So if you have one glove, let's say, if it's a bad example, you just call me on it, but you have one glove that then has to meet the criteria for each location that it's going to wind up in. How do you get ahead of that on behalf of a customer?
When we look at the product side, there's 2 different lenses we have to look at it. The private label, our exclusive brands, we put a lot of effort into making sure that things are globally compliant. Okay. So what that'll mean is we develop an item and we'll test it against all of the different standards. We'll maintain all of the documentation that's necessary to make it legal for sale in those territories. And then we'll also deal with some of the challenges of languages. Europe, as an example, we're present in 15 countries, but legally we have to have 27 languages on our user instruction labels. When we look at the branded side, so think of our biggest branded partners. I think of Ansel. They'll sell the same type of glove globally, but they'll actually isolate different standards for different markets with different compliance regulations. And it's quite rare that we'll be able to just free pass move from one area to another. Okay. So we provide a bit more flexibility, and we put a lot of effort into making sure that's possible. Branded suppliers take a little bit more conservative view towards it.
I am curious how you would approach, if you're a customer and you're reaching out to Fastenal or any company and you're saying, hey, I have places that I'm a global company and I'm looking to handle sourcing, compliance. I'm looking to really understand if you can be the right partner for me. How do they know that Fastenal is a good fit?
The fact that they're reaching out to us is already the best decision that they've made. We focus on what's called multi-site multinationals. When we look at our international business, the way we went to market was a little bit different than North America. We never had walk-in stores. It was always a focus on finding an end user that might produce in multiple different countries, have a very fragmented supply chain. You look at those global manufacturers, there's a lot of acquisitions that happen, And you know, when you buy a company, you buy the good and the bad. In a lot of cases, we finally become the central pivot point for all of their supply chain information. So when a customer reaches out to us, I'd say the easiest thing is define the requirements, tell us what you want to accomplish, and let our experts come in and we'll present to you your options.
Okay.
We're not going to force a customer into doing anything, but the options we present will be so good, they would be silly not to do business with us.
Okay. Thank you. That helps. That makes a lot of sense. I'm asking about what capability do you wish that customers took advantage of because it would save them time or reduce risks. This can be something that's Fastenal specific or just broadly like, hey, a lot of people are missing this obvious win.
On the direct material OEM side, I wish customers engaged more with our engineering teams.
Fair.
We've seen a big trend over the past 15, 20 years. It's been easier to do single part manufacturing, and suddenly the customer's products are becoming much more specialized. In a lot of cases, that adds complexity and cost, which we can eliminate by standardizing and simplifying the mechanical connections within an assembly. Our engineering teams do a great job unpacking how things are made today, and again, presenting options on how they could be done more efficiently. When I look in the safety PPE side, good engagement. We have fantastic safety sellers. We have highly specialized technical application specialists that can go in, look at the risk application, and make great product recommendations to solve the need. And on this point, I think it's interesting to point out, customers do what they know. And in a lot of cases, we walk into environments where they spec'd in a product 20 years ago. New technologies have come out since then, and the customer's just oblivious to them. So we look at that as an opportunity to show them what's possible, and again, drive cost savings and drive efficiency into their business.
Okay.
Same thing applies to all of the other indirect materials.
You're mentioning technology, and I want to segue again. It's great that we have a list of questions that I'm not sticking to at all,
Sure.
but I feel like the technology piece is just, we have to talk about Fastenal's technology. How do people benefit from the fact that there are so many, we're living in an era of AI. So as we head into more and more, your data is going to be telling your story for you. And if your data isn't good, how do you move forward? How can Fastenal help with this pivot that is coming?
Internally, we believe we have the best data in the industry. We have the most point of use access machines of anyone by far. We have fantastic Kanban technologies and scale systems and smart scan, all of these different devices that not only help the customer in their daily operations, but it empowers us with really good data. And I look at what we're doing in terms of core vertical engagement, right? We fragment our business into different types of industry: heavy equipment manufacturing, data centers, food and bev, life sciences. Because we have such good exposure to so many customers working in those environments, a new customer coming in engaging us, we're able to immediately have insight into what works well for their business and tie that to the partnerships we have with our greatest suppliers and even internally what we're able to do with our private labeling. If you come to me, and I've never spoken to you before, but I understand your industry, there's a good chance that I can provide a lot of solutions that aren't even on your radar today, but are going to provide tremendous benefit.
Okay, so I'm thinking that's a good introduction to technology and how it can help you. I'm going to change gears now.
Okay.
The biggest misconception. So if I'm a customer and I'm out there just living my life, I think about Europe's supply chain on a semi-regular basis. It's not my world, but I think about it. Sure. Is there a misconception that you want to clear up for that person? Something that you see that they might have missed?
Depending on the industry, and it's highly variable, I think there's still an understanding that you need to have a lot of fragmentation. Especially when you look in a transnational landscape, there's this idea that perhaps in this region, this supplier is the best, in this region, this manufacturer. But largely, when we look at our partnerships that we have with our best suppliers, they're able to provide a harmonized solution for the entire continent. And that's changed. The Schengen came in place, free borders, a little bit easier, entrance into the EU, and even with the UK. A lot of the best manufacturers that we work with can support the entire territory. And if we can take as an example one of our end users, real example, we took them from 13,500 PPE SKUs in 6 countries down to about 3,000. We worked intensively with the health and safety managers, we engaged our best manufacturing partners, and we provided solutions, calling back to what we talked before, things that weren't even on their radar. 2 gloves can turn into 1 super glove. I have low-cost product that doesn't last very long, we can replace it with something much more durable, where the additional cost is bigger, but apportioned over the life drives incredible cost savings. And then you tie that into the ESG expectations and the green, all of this, and we're taking what used to be conflicting ideas and we're having harmonized solutions for end users. So we're really proud of all that, and we're really excited to engage in those opportunities.
Okay, I actually want to come back to sustainability, but before we go any further, I didn't have it on the list, but is there a misconception about Asia's supply chain that we should touch on too?
Kind of similar to Europe, a little bit slower.
Oh, okay.
You do see a lot of coverage from the same type of manufacturers, but I would say in Asia, where it is more fragmented, I would ask our customers to lean into Fastenal, because we are one company, one team, one goal, and we're able to provide the same harmonized service across the entire territory, even if it feels fragmented at the beginning in the onset.
And that applies globally too. That's
Absolutely.
None of these are pockets. It's not like if you're in Europe, it has to be just Europe. Everything is in play.
100%.
Okay, okay. I'm going to bring up your favorite topic, compliance.
Love it.
Yep, okay. What compliance change are you excited about because it's going to make things easier for customers?
We talked earlier, Europeans love laws.
Yes.
And this will be in the lens of European law. There's a lot of effort right now looking into forever chemicals, into REACH and RoHS compliance, so my mind immediately goes to lead content and brass fittings. There's a lot of harmful things that are getting pulled out of supply chains to the benefit of the end user and the benefit of our planet. There's obviously some challenges, some landmines we need to navigate. There's historical ways people have done business with old school products, let's say.
Yep.
And this is a really good opportunity to get everybody to the forefront of the new technology, the new capabilities that are out there. So I'm not excited about laws putting constraints on how people can
Right,
cooperate,
right.
but I am excited with the idea of what's behind it. And if we navigate well, which I think we are,
Yeah.
Our customers are going to benefit, and so will everybody.
Okay, okay, I can see that. What makes Europe, and you can guess that the follow-up question is going to be Asia, uniquely challenging? What is uniquely challenging about when somebody is working, let's say that it's specifically in Europe to start, why would that be a challenge?
The Europeans are very protective. My mind here immediately goes to a new legislation that just started called CBAM. It's the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. Europe is the first territory in the world, we're talking the European Union, with the UK 1 year behind, where there's going to be a carbon tax for all steel imports. So our exposure is massive, looking at all the fasteners that we sell and that we import globally source. But the idea is we're going to incentivize us to use cleaner factories. And as painful as it is navigating the early stages of the legislation, that's exactly the decision making we have internally. Because the cleaner factory emits less carbon, which means there's less carbon liability.
Okay. I said we were going to come back to sustainability, and I haven't forgotten because I just wrote it down. But is there anything within Asia that you want to touch on that makes it uniquely challenging? And it's okay if not.
Asia grew so quickly that today there's a lot of capacity in manufacturing that isn't necessarily the cleanest or the best or the most technologically advanced.
Sure.
But because the costs have been apportioned, it's still very competitive.
Okay.
So right now we're tracking very heavily. We see a big migration of production from China and Taiwan towards Southeast Asia with some beautiful greenfield factories coming in. So for us, the challenge is how do we, in some cases, restart the relationship. If it's an existing partner that moved down, that's a little bit easier. But there's new entities coming up, and we need to be on the forefront, understanding who they are, how we can integrate them into our supply chains, and how we can utilize their product portfolio to support our customers and end users.
Okay, I think my follow-up, which is still not sustainability, is how are we vetting them?
We have a fantastic team. We have fantastic teams. Multiple different countries. It's part of our FastGo umbrella, our FastGo organization. Every single supplier that we added in Asia right now is going through a full on-site audit.
Okay.
Even what you would consider a low-risk type of product, maybe paper supplies or the writing pad that you had, we'll still physically send auditors, our own auditors, to go look at that, because we're not just looking about the process controls of production. We're looking at the social compliance, the social responsibility. You look at some of our qualification surveys, and we're asking, do you provide clean drinking water to your employees? Do you pay your employees directly? These are real concerns in some parts of the world, and we take it very, very seriously.
Okay. I think it's time for sustainability. I am going to ask it now.
Okay.
When you are hearing people talk about it, is it they're looking for sustainability, or are they being forced into sustainability? Is this a driving force, or is it something that is basically just compliance?
Two sides to this discussion. Certainly you have the government-driven legislation, like a CBAM, like a EU deforestation regulation coming in. The UK has a plastic tax for packaging. So part of it's that, but then we also see some best in class, the world production leaders, some of our biggest global customers that have their own initiatives, their own agendas. And with that, it's kind of fun to see, but the trickle-down effect, all of their sub-suppliers, all of the downstream customers that they engage in, they suddenly have to adopt that mega manufacturer's expectations. So it's coming from both sides. You see it on the initial material production. We're seeing a lot of non-virgin plastics, so second life plastics used for new production. That's part of it. But we're also having more and more discussions and implementing programs about end-of-life recycling and recovery.
I feel like something that gets missed is that there's cost savings to be had with sustainability.
Sure.
Almost every time that anytime that I learn something new about, if you switch out your HVAC filters from something that's a quarterly replacement to a 6-month replacement, you have cut down on the amount of labor, you've cut down on the amount of product, so you're not putting time into changing it, you're not putting something into the landfill as much as you used to. Are there other examples out there? Is sustainability a path to cost savings?
Absolutely. I'll give you a couple examples.
Okay.
We take brand A battery, move it to brand B battery. I'm not going to talk specific brands. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Brand B is 10% more expensive, but it lasts 40% longer. That's huge cost savings. A real example, one of my favorite, is we took a 1-day use glove in a customer and changed it to a much more expensive glove that lasts a full 5 days. So 5 times longer use, 4 times higher cost. That's 20% cost savings. But more importantly, we decreased our imports by 80%. We decreased our service of our vending machines by 80%, the warehouse space down by 80%, and final landfill went down by 80%. But we also put in a recovery program in recycling. The cheap glove didn't make sense to recycle, but that more expensive glove, it does. So every single step in the supply chain becomes more efficient, the working capital goes down for us and the customer, and we have a much cleaner solution.
Okay. That's about where I thought you were going to go. I didn't know you were going to have numbers for me, so thank you. Bonus points.
That's a real example from a real customer.
So let's talk a little bit about expectations.
Sure.
What outcomes, like I'm a customer and I'm coming to you, I've got some questions, I want to work with you on compliance. What outcomes should they be expecting if everything is handled right? What can they hope for?
The first thing is we need access to their decision-making process, to the types of products that they're using, and we need to identify which compliance risks exist within their supply chains. As we engage and we start to take over some of their functions in terms of product ordering, product delivery, water spider delivery throughout the factory, the expectation is that everything is going to be done well. The laws in the European Union are written in such a way that I, as the distributor, I'm making the product available on the market, I carry all compliance regulatory requirements. So we take it very seriously. We have robust teams in place to make sure the customer is safe and make sure the customer isn't going to step on any landmines. So again, maybe oversimplified, but the ask is engage us and let us show you what we can do. And we'll validate the confidence that you should have in how we do business.
To me, I feel like there's a balance between compliance and cost, or even availability and cost. Sure. Is that a fair way to look at it? And if so, how do you make that balance work?
It starts with open and honest conversations.
Oh, okay.
A challenge we have right now, I look at REACH and RoHS compliance. Lead is a big concern. There's a lot of lead and brass. Yeah. We have a lot of customers that use a lot of brass. So right now, with our engagement of our engineering teams and some of the other opportunities we have, we're looking at how do we remove this as a problem part in their production and their supply chains and make sure that future-looking compliance expectations, we're meeting and exceeding all of the requirements.
Okay. I feel like we've touched on lead and lead being in brass. Is lead anywhere else in your world that you want to highlight?
Not, brass is our largest exposure.
Okay. Okay.
I would say in our day-to-day, but there's certainly other regulations. I look at the forever chemicals. Certainly when we look at some of the technical sprays and aerosols, that's all changed. CFCs in North America as well, that's all changed over the years. So we're on the front end of the legislations. We're making sure that what we bring into the European Union or to the Asian market, North America, that we're always in the best position possible to avoid any issues downstream.
Okay. I'm going to have you put on a couple of different hats, and you're going to tell me, what do these roles get when they work with Fastenal?
Fantastic.
So if I'm a plant manager, I've just heard, hey, we're going to be using Fastenal. Fastenal is our go-to for X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things they can expect? What does the plant manager get out of that relationship?
We are going to free up your day-to-day labor. We're going to reduce your working capital, and we're going to give you documented cost savings from a total cost of ownership perspective, and we're going to continuously validate why it makes sense to do business with us.
Okay, so
commercially.
The plant manager sees all that. Yeah. I'm imagining a lot of roles see that.
Certainly.
Is an executive looking for something different from Fastenal? Are they expecting something different? Or when the plant manager's like, yeah, no, this is all working. Okay, great, good job, Fastenal. Or is there more to it?
You look at the incentive structures for different teams. Health and safety, the expectations there is they want to be on the cutting edge. They want to make sure that there's as few risky environments within their production as possible. So that's the KPIs that drive their decision making. Mm-hmm. We look at the purchasing teams. Maybe they're looking to simplify how many purchase orders, how many different vendors they're having to manage. Maybe they don't want to re-quote every purchase every single time. Can we contract a negotiated price for them? Just simplifies their day-to-day. So absolutely it is variable and different depending on the different roles. The line production leader, they just want to make sure everything is there when they need it, and they don't want to have hassles. The actual line workers, if they have a issue with a product, maybe they want somebody to listen and to provide alternatives or solutions to what they're seeing. I think we do a really good job as an organization engaging every single level of leadership within an organization. And certainly we tailor the message and we promote the KPIs that we're achieving differently for every single different group. Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say, if you're sitting there as a line worker and your PPE is bothering you, we want to help you with that.
Absolutely.
We want to jump in and say, you know, there's something that you can wear that's going to be more comfortable, it's going to last all day, it breathes better. The technology there is changing in a way that is, maybe even rapid is the wrong word, but it's moving quickly enough where people can have all-day product, where in the past, like cut protection stuff was bulky. Well, now you can have dexterity back.
21 gauge.
21 gauge.
It doesn't feel real.
Exactly. You knew exactly what I was going. Okay. Well, thank you.
But let me paint a scenario for you. You are a line worker.
Yeah.
We've been asked to come in. We're doing a safety audit. We're going from department to department. We're looking at all of the risk environments. And we recognize in a high impact cut oil environment, everyone's wearing 2 gloves. They're putting a disposable inspection glove on first, and then a heavy cut glove on top of that. That's how you did it 20 years ago. Today we have single glove models that can accomplish the same things. So from a user perspective, it's a lot easier. There's 2 SKUs we're managing now down to 1, so the purchasers are a little bit happier. And at the top, the plant manager, the managing director, they're going to see cost savings, both on the labor direct cost side and the direct material cost.
Is that, and I think this is almost exactly the question, but is that, do you have an example of basically SKU reduction? Is this something that is real that you've seen?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. This is what we do every day. Speaking to Europe specifically, we have a great team. We call them safety specialists, and their full-time job is to go in, explore that risk, and make recommendations how to simplify the SKUs, how to standardize the brands. Because again, we talked a lot of these multi-site multinationals, there's acquisitions. Yeah. You buy that company, not only are they working on different MRP systems, so the company sometimes doesn't know what left and right hand are doing. We become the central pivot point for information. But then we engage with all the health and safety managers in these different countries, different plants, and we come to a harmonized consensus on what is the best option for that organization.
Okay. I am curious, when we stop and think about, it's 2026.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. And the pace of change is seemingly just increasing.
It's accelerating.
There's no way that we're going to be going backwards in terms of, oh, it's taking a break, it's taking a breather. It's just going to keep amping up. What is a near-term change that people should have their eye on?
My head immediately goes to the integration of AI.
Okay.
Looking for trends, looking for data consolidation, and looking for really good decision making. So again, going back to understanding our core verticals, our different industry channels, let's say, we're more and more positioned every single quarter, every single year to make excellent decisions with less labor input. So not only are we providing better options and a better roadmap for how to engage and implement those products, but we're doing it more efficiently, which means we can do it more quickly. The more customers that we can touch, certainly that helps Fastenal because we have more revenue opportunity, but I look at it as we're able to support more end users, more workers on the front lines in a more safe and comfortable capacity.
Okay, I think we're pretty much at the end here. Final question, I think you're gonna like this one. Somebody finishes watching this video and they have questions. What's the very first thing they should do?
Let's keep it simple. Reach out to your local Fastenal rep. Let us validate why we're worth your time.
Okay, thanks for your time.
Thank you.